everyone, Coralfish here. I recently had a chance to hear author Doug Fine give a presentation about his latest book, Hemp Bound, and I just had to share that presentation with all of you. I hope you enjoy.
Doug is also known as, besides being a solar-powered goat herder, he told me, he's also a hemp fairy. So, without further ado, Doug Fine, thank you.
Woo!
Happy Earth Day, everybody!
Happy Earth Day!
Happy Earth Day! Hemp fairy, thank you, Nutiva.
Ooh, thank you.
Bay Area based Nutiva company. I don't have any equity in their company, but my publicist said, I don't know, these aren't viable seeds, these are to eat. Unfortunately, oh my gosh, now I really know it's the San Francisco audience. Happy Earth Day! Yeah, Happy Earth Day, the day when we acknowledge our intention to follow the values of sustainability for a day every year. We're on the side of the earth. And we're back to our automobiles and coal power plants. But hemp's going to save us. See, here's the problem. The problem about speaking about hemp is that your roommate with the lava lamp was right about it. So when you're a journalist of 20 years experience and you sound like the dude on Haight Street, you have to, I start right off and apologizing. And that's when I just came back from the East Coast, a lot of East Coast media, live events. That was my assumption there. This in a way is more difficult for me because I could assume, and I was told, like at the Philadelphia Free Library, Philadelphia Book Festival last week, I was told, assume that nobody knows what hemp is, that they think it's marijuana, that they don't know what THC is. How about this San Francisco audience? How many people here are aware that hemp was effectively re-legalized in this year's Farm Bill? Show of hands.
Woo.
Yeah, so we're on our way. This is an American hero, Ryan Laughlin, last year planted with the help of another really cool hemp company that I'm not getting paid by. I'm not getting paid to praise Dr. Bronner's soap. Planted 60 acres in effectively Kansas, like southeast Colorado. It's the view there is Obama was born in Libya. Let's plant hemp. It's pretty amazing. So, brief background, making no assumptions. In 1937, hemp was banned in the sweeping cannabis marijuana tax act, 1937. Immediately shipping American jobs offshore. The Navy needed 40 tons of hemp rigging for every vessel, so we started getting it from the Philippines, inferior to the quality of the American industry that was being wiped out. And then the Japanese captured the Philippines. So on YouTube today you can see a video, Hemp for Victory, and it was produced by the United States Department of Agriculture. And it sounds like your roommate with the lava lamp. Seriously, it's all the applications we're going to be talking about tonight. Our government acknowledged and attempted to promote, and for some reason it went on for 77 years. And then, this February, instead of getting laughed out of committee, Congress did it. It did the right thing, an important thing for humanity. And I think because the app I really want to talk about the most is Energy for Hemp. But, so, the Farm Bill was a big deal. I did not know that the Congress and the President were going to be a part of the marketing team for my new book. When I wrote this paragraph, it's the second paragraph of the book, my plan the day hemp becomes legal is to begin cultivating 10 acres so that my sweetheart no longer has to import from China the materials she already uses to make the shirts, and tonight vests also, I wear in media interviews and at live events, to discuss the fairly massive economic value of hemp. In a cynical age, we can use one less irony. So, I basically want to be growing clothes and food down where I live in New Mexico. This fellow, fifth generation farmer in Colorado, has the same idea too. His family farm, federally subsidized. It's been in that GMO cycle for as long as it's been around. And this is him literally displacing sick GMO corn in drought ravaged Colorado with hemp seeds on the 4th of July. Pretty interesting. So there's a term in agriculture, dual cropping. It's when one plant harvest is able to be used for more than one thing. So with hemp, I want it to be tri-cropping. I want it to be three things. Fiber, seed oil, and energy, right from the beginning. I think of this as the upside of prohibition, because in traveling around the world and researching hemp, there's very little market overlap. The Canadians are growing for seed oil, Europeans, Chinese growing for textiles. Going for fiber. China, it's mostly textiles. In Europe, it's other high-end applications like this. This is the actual fiber coming off the Dutch assembly line going into BMW and Mercedes door panels, because once again, your roommate was right, with the lava lamp was right. The fiber really is stronger than steel. It's easily replicable. So the third app is the one I'm really excited about, energy. Nobody's doing it with hemp yet, but entire communities in Europe are becoming energy independent from farm waste. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. I guess we can talk about it right now. So, how many people are familiar with Jared Diamond's book, Collapse? So for those who are not, it's a fairly terrifying tome with just different stories of civilizations that have been big and advanced like ours and collapsed. And we're sort of at that critical juncture. I'm one of these people that sort of had the realization when I became a father that, this isn't, climate change isn't a thing like, oh yeah, I'll try and recycle. It's something we have to do about it if we're going to continue as a species. The earth is fine. That's what a number of my previous books were about. One of them was called Farewell My Subaru. I still live on this ranch in New Mexico, to which I moved in the course of telling the story in that book, and I'm still driving on vegetable oil, solar powered, and getting outsmarted by my goats on a regular basis. So I care about these things, but fatherhood really cemented it. So it was actually while researching Too High to Fail, my previous book about the sustainable psychoactive cannabis industry in Emerald Triangle, Northern California, that I first started to think about hemp's potential energy application, because those forward thinkers in Mendocino, this is a place so progressive. Any more progressive, it would be clothing optional in the supermarket, They were thinking about this. They were thinking that we're going to have the cellulose, the stalks done when we're done with the harvest. What can we do with it? And before the feds raided their, law-abiding, tax-paying, cartel-herding program. But that was just a temporary setback. I think we can all agree we've almost got this thing won. In any event, I had the idea to look into hemp as an energy source when I started. It's really the reason I started to want to write a hemp book. And immediately I started with ethanol, because while I drive on vegetable oil, meaning diesel, there isn't a lot of saturation in the U.S. market for diesel. So I thought ethanol would be the way to go. And immediately I was told by the people that I interviewed that, unit of energy for unit energy, cellulosic ethanol is not there for a number of reasons. But then I was told about gasification. So, it's awesome. The town of Feldheim, Germany had the highest unemployment in Germany, and 30%, and they put everybody back to work in this gasification network, really. Individual farms with these small units, they're about outhouse size. It's an anaerobic farm waste combustion that's very carbon friendly. And you can also, on YouTube, if an Austrian farmer walks you through it, and there's English translation, Austria, gasification farmer, or something like that, you'll be able to see it in action. The Army's been buying up these units because they need more efficient ways to generate fuel on site, and they've been trucking diesel across danger zones and having problems with that. So, just so you know that this stuff is not a pipe dream, look, one of the first talks for this beginning of this tour is now 2 or 3 weeks old in Colorado at a hemp conference. 2, what looked to me, kids, graduate students, came up to me after this talk and said, we came here to this conference trying to figure out how we wanted to help get the hemp industry going, and I'm an engineer, and this is the money guy, and I think who do we call to be the distributor for these units? Because I want to see in every one of the first generation American hemp processors, whether it's for seed oil or fiber, or ideally both, in that third section, energy independence. You can generate a lot of energy, sell it back to the grid, or just make yourself, your own farm, energy independent. So for investors, venture capitalists, people like that, that's where I urge them to go, is to supporting communities, really, farmers to grow and own their processors, and have vertical local control of a regional, let's say, seed oil market. So that's energy. Fiber, this was so silky soft. The Hemp Flax is the name of the company in the Netherlands that makes the fiber for the BMW and Mercedes door panels. And it was fascinating to tour their facility. And this is where the money is. The reason why hemp is really going to work, the reason why it's not there's a number of major reasons why it's my professional journalistic opinion that we are going to see a massive multi-billion-dollar hemp industry develop immediately in the U.S. over the next couple of years. The number one reason is it's not rocket science. In Canada today, farmers make $300 profit per acre on hemp seed oil. That's 10 times the profit that they make on GMO corn. And the demand curve is just hitting that Malthusian, off-the-chart growth thing. Like, you people in this audience may think that you've been thinking about hemp for a long time, eating hemp for a long time. Homer Simpson is just hearing about hemp now, over the next couple of years, for the first time, and understanding what it is, that it's good and healthy, USA Today, health section kind of stuff. It's just starting. So while there's no guarantee that current prices reflect future prices, as any investment advisor would tell you, every thinking Obama, everyone who listens to Show Me the Birth Certificate country music that I met while researching Hemp Bound was down for hemp, thinking about hemp, interested in hemp. There was not a negative voice in rural America about it, and that includes Mitch McConnell, the Kentucky Senate Republican who helped forward this great provision we got in last year's Farm Bill. The first fiber killer app that I think we're going to see in the new world here is for construction. First of all, performance of hempcrete. Hempcrete is just fiber chopped up, mixed with lime, provides carbon neutral homes, and because there's as the lime hardens, it extracts carbon from your home's atmosphere. So this was not a hippie Iranian postdoc Farhud Delajani at the University of Manitoba showing me the data. This is how toxic pink insulation works. That's its R value. This is hemp's. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, looks like it's higher with hemp. So he's like, it is higher with hemp. Hempcrete outperforms pink insulation with a tiny fraction of the environmental cost, let alone the actual monetary costs. So that's where I think the killer app is going to be. By the way, it's really, you'll see there's videos on my website, and also if you read Hemp Bound, you'll see it's easy to mix and work with as well. Hempcrete is, builders love doing it. Marks and Spencer department store in flagship store in Britain recently was built out of hempcrete. This isn't, again, nothing that I'm talking about here is a hypothetical and a pipe dream. It's all happening and winning in the marketplace because of cost and performance. Thank God. But the reason why I think it's going to be the first killer app in the new world is because it's relatively low learning curve. You should hear the stories that these guys at Hemp Flax were telling me. They've been in this business for 20 years. They make the finest fiber in the world, and every harvest is a learning curve. As I was leaving their facility, I saw sparks flying, and I heard hammers banging in a far corner, and I went over to check out what was going on. And it was their mechanics jerry-rigging their harvesters, because there's now, in addition to the seed and fiber, there's now a big market in Europe for hemp flower tips in high-end, super high-end beauty care and products like that, moisturizers and whatnot. So they had to attach a third blade and weld a third harvest onto this one crop. That's the cutting edge of this industry right now, because those bast fibers, the high-end fibers right there, are going into Mercedes. A lot of quality control is what I'm trying to say. Likewise with textiles. In the textiles industry, the word for softness is hand. And so a better hand on textiles, on clothing, means that they're really soft. And whenever I think about this, I think about the Seinfeld episode where George Costanza, for once, has the upper hand in a relationship. And he's so glad about it until he gets dumped and he complains to the girl, but I had hand. And she says, and you're going to need it. When you see the hand at a chain mall kind of store, it's extremely silky soft in that cotton that was, dyed with God knows what by a 15-year-old girl in Bangladesh. 30% of the world's pesticides are used for cotton. So China is in the lead, way in advance of the U.S. On this kind of professional textile side of things, the hand, because they were seeing diminished returns on their cotton crop, meaning the soil was poisoned and people were dying from poisoned water. So their president visits their hemp factories instead of having taxpayers fund hemp eradication, as still goes on in this country. They're way ahead on it. I think if people are really, what I've learned since my girlfriend likes to make these hemp clothes, is that people that are into hemp in any one niche, and in particular in general people that are freaks about people that are clothies, like some people are foodies, they're going to be super passionate about it and see it through. And some people are going to want to develop an American hemp industry in textiles. We certainly have the factory space, especially in the South. Even the Canadians, that government does support their research up there, are doing research into fiber. They came up with a really cool matting that they thought might work on a kind of cashmere-like sweater application. They had to ship it, their blueprints, they had to ship their prototype to Pennsylvania, where there was a factory that could process that type of fiber. So we actually have that sort of farm-to-rail, farm-to-factory infrastructure in the U.S. that puts us back in the game a little bit, even though China doesn't have to pay its workers and doesn't have environmental rules and stuff like that, especially when you factor in things like carbon miles and shipping. But they're what I'm getting at is those are high-end applications that require a real knowledge base and a lot of study, whereas hempcrete is harvest your seed, not rocket science. Like, first-year farmers can do this. Harvest the seed from the Canadians tell you what cultivars to grow. And by the way, on the Canadians list for how to grow hemp, official government agriculture site, under pesticides and herbicides, it says none needed. Just in case the Canadians prophylactically banned genetically modified hemp when they started their industry, it's very important that we do that too, even though it doesn't exist yet. But I'm really not too worried about it because it grows like a weed. So you've got your hemp seed harvested, and the main trick on that one, besides harvesting at the right time, is storing your seeds at the right moisture until it gets to the processor, so that it doesn't spoil or go rancid, right? So seeds, that's where the money is today, $300 an acre. And fiber, all you have to do is chop it up for put it in a bag, and it should be in Lowe's and Home Depot and your corner hardware store. So I think that we will see that as a big app. Things we can't even conceive of today: body armor, nanotechnology, 3D printing. This is a tractor body entirely made of hemp. I kicked it. It's very strong. It's light. It works. It's the real deal. Another non-hippie studying it. So again, American hero Ryan Laughlin. This is big business. His family is $600,000 in debt to farm equipment and seed companies and all that from the whole GMO cycle. And the reason why his super conservative father supported his experiment last year, they could have been raided at any time. And the reason why his father supported Ryan's effort is because they read the journals, they know what the Canadian farmers are making per acre. It's big business. So when I interviewed the biggest seed mogul in Manitoba, Sean Crew of Manitoba, of Hemp Oil Canada, who can't wait for American farmers to grow because they can't keep up with the demand. Their industry is growing 20% per year. It's going to pass $1 billion this year in 15 years since it started. It's amazing. I was there, and he was in the middle of his 4th expansion in 10 years. So I was trying to play a hypothetical middle ground between home gardener on half an acre, my 40 acres, and big farmers. I said, listen, I've got 40 acres in New Mexico. If I were to do a little kind of checkerboard patchwork, 20 or so acres at a time, he goes, talk to the hand. If you're growing less than 1,000 acres, you're a hobby farmer. We don't even want to talk to you. So, first of all, let's do a little math here. $300 profit per acre last year in Canada officially. On 1,000 minimum acres, you could live in San Francisco comfortably on a third of $1 million a year, I think. Almost. Probably. Almost, yeah. So that's pretty good, and that's the game these guys are in. the Laughlins. But I disagree that that's the only way it can go. I think if farmers get together on a cooperative model, you can produce, there's a cultivar called Thinola. We call, by the way, hemp strains cultivars. It's just this little seed-dense thing. It's not what I would ideally grow for tri-cropping, because I want to see fiber apps and energy apps in, but if you just want to make start restoring the soil and make money, and you're a struggling farmer, on 5 acres, you could grow a marketable amount of hemp seed oil. It's sort of like the way in psychoactive cannabis, people, you know, in the business, consider somebody that grows 20 big outdoor plants to be unbelievably small, basically a hobby farmer, like spare change. But to middle America, those are 5-pound plants each. Somebody that harvests and sells 100 pounds of cannabis at $2,000 or $3,000 a pound, like, that's like, you know, they'd believe it if they were told in the newspaper that's a drug lord or a drug mogul or something like that. So we really are talking about different scales, and there's different ways to cultivate, different markets to cultivate it. My publisher, since the book was titled Hemp Bound, and when we negotiated our deal, the plan was for it to be Hemp Bound, they are now funding a Colorado farmer to start growing hemp fiber for pulp. And then there's small producers. I love this family. I love anytime anything to do with drug policy or hemp, you can talk about Republicans and Christians being on our side. It's like Pat Robertson says a lifetime of crazy things, deeply offensive to my faith and to common sense, and then one day says, not just that the war on cannabis should end, but he says it for the right reason. Like, it's ridiculous. We're imprisoning our kids for this harmless plant. And I'm like, hallelujah, praise the Lord, where do I send my check? So, this is a super religious Heartland, Manitoba family, the Dicks, Colleen and Grant Dick. Colleen is one of these firebrands, she's a triathlete, and she didn't like the state of, you know, she's got like 7 kids, and like, while I was there, she was giving me a tour somehow while also part of her spirit was at some sort of church meeting in a different province. You know, she's a really busy family. So she didn't like her energy bars. She didn't think they were healthy enough. So she used some of the local hemp seed to make a prototype for this Gorp hemp energy bar. Entered it in this big Manitoba food fight. It's a food production country. It's a big deal, big contest. And she won these tens of thousands of dollars to finance her basement to basically go through the hurdles of Canadian food production bureaucracy, which meant that now her husband, Grant, who one of these guys behind, totally, what's it, Grant, what is it? You know, in his overalls behind her, just like rolling his eyes, yes dear, you know, kind of deal. She made him grow, I think, 300 acres of hemp. Now goes into their product. And it was another side funny story about this is I'm in my usual hemp garb. As I was leaving, they gave me like, you know, 80 pounds every flavor of this stuff. You know, take it home to the family. And as I'm going through customs, the customs guide was one of those that asks you. He goes, "You bringing back any drugs?" And I was like, "Let's see. Well, hemp is cannabis, so." My breakfast, that's in my stomach, my lunch, my shirt, my pants, my hat, and also like everything in this bag is made out of cannabis. And he was like, very funny.
Do you have any to try?
What's that?
Do you have any that we could taste?
Oh, you don't even know. You weren't here for the hemp berry. This is just seed, and it can be eaten straight.
Oh, it's in it?
Hold on 1 second. Thank you, Nutiva Bay Area Seed Company, supporting tonight's event. Who here hasn't had their seed yet? Anybody? Yeah, here we go. They're all right there. Okay, so I guess my point on this slide is big or small, it's all good. I think it's going to be all good. I'm often asked, what if Monsanto wants to come in? And my rote answer ever since I started researching boutique cannabis farmers, psychoactive cannabis farmers, is Wall Street does what Wall Street does. We can decide with our pocketbooks. On the side of issue of hemp, for me, as long as there's a prophylactic GMO ban on hemp, I'm fine with amber waves of GMO grain changing into green waves of industrial cannabis. Big business, yeah, it's fine as long as it's not genetically modified, in my opinion.
Isn't the soil poison?
No, because, you mean from hemp?
No, from GMO, if you want to make that transition.
Oh yeah, well, that's a good point, and there's another good point associated with that, which is actually John Rulak told me this. He's the founder of Nutiva, the folks that provided these seeds here tonight. He said why he urges everyone to make sure they're buying organic hemp is what's happening a lot in the Canadian industry is because hemp is a bridge crop. In other words, it grows and can be harvested fast enough, especially when you're just growing for the seed oil, as the Canadians are, that they're planting their GMO stuff around it in the same soil in the same year. And hemp has incredible phytoremediation qualities. Should we have a signal for when I'm going on to sounding like your roommate with the lava lamp?
Yeah.
You know, as you'll read in Hemp Bound and see the videos on my website, I was, don't believe me, I was really there researching it. But so on the side of phytoremediation, hemp has been used around the Chernobyl nuclear disaster to leach radiation from soil. Physiologically, as an annual, it has unusually long taproots, foot-long taproots that create an essential place, a biome for the essential microbial soup that goes on in soil in organic agriculture and lets the earth survive. Lets the soil survive. And people have been growing hemp in the same place, part of France and China, for 1,200 years. So hemp really does have a lot of magical qualities. Now, prior to the 1937 Marijuana Tax Act, we had this germplasm Kentucky seed that was the best in the world. Everybody wanted it. David West, a researcher, former big ag researcher who soured on the whole GMO thing and came over to hemp. Not unlike the way a lot of federal former drug squad type people are joining the cannabis movement as consultants now. Yeah, I'm all for it. When you're on the side that people are defecting to, you're winning the war. David West went and Indiana Jones kind of situation, National Seed Repository in Virginia, blowing dust off the crate with the bureaucrat that led him there with the clipboard, and pried open the crate that said Kentucky hemp germplasm, and it was 2 open bags, long rotted, so it's gone, and we have to rebuild it. And the question is how, and there's a lot of different sort of theories on how to do it. One is, another reason Ryan Laughlin was a hero for growing last season is not just for putting his family farm and their federal subsidies at risk, but because he was also doing a constructive thing. He was rebuilding the seed stock with bottom line intentions. He wants to be the seed seller. And there's others doing it in Colorado too, other good above board people doing it in Colorado now. So one thing a farmer can do is just be patient for a couple of years and build seed stock, because you get exponential growth, very unbelievably productive plant, and soon you'll have enough for your own commercial varieties. Another option is let Darwin decide. This ditchweed that we spend millions of taxpayer dollars every year to eradicate, why shouldn't we be cultivating that? It's obviously showed its ability to survive. The reason is, and I'm not arguing against it. I'll give you both sides. If somebody really wants to do that, I think that not only might they develop something that's viable in the marketplace, but right from season one, if they're growing for seed, they might be able to press oil for a farmer's market, that kind of level where it's just locally done. Or on the fiber side, for something like the easy apps we were discussing earlier, like construction, something that doesn't require uniformity and a brand name. But what the Canadians now, remember, they're in $1 billion industry. This is big business, and I'm speaking in the book to all of the top players in it. And what they're saying is, if you want your product to be carried in Safeway or even a regional organic food co-op, you can't just be like, it's just some hemp I found in my backyard. Good as that is, an old-timer Nebraska rancher woman told me that her father used to plant it along their irrigation ditches because no matter how much flooding they got during the rainy season, it was unstoppable in just a few months as soil stabilizer and erosion control. So map that on to the Sahara that is the American heartland right now, with climate change and GMO monoculture, and also the real sub-Saharan, and how that might help farmers from Mali to Zimbabwe, all over the world. So yet another way to figure out.
Question: is the hemp plant indigenous on all continents? I mean, is it?
It's been cultivated in all continents except for Antarctica. But for instance, the North American cultivars that were grown prior to the drug war died out, but they're being reintroduced now. And another way,
Is the plant like originally sourced to some part of the world, then spread, or is it sort of have its own strands in different parts of the world?
oh yeah, it's the evolution. You know, Michael Pollan believes we've evolved with the cannabis plant, but yeah, there's varieties of cannabis now. So institutionally, this kind of gets into the other side to letting Darwin survive. Institutionally, there's a catalog of cultivars that is used in the world industrial cannabis market, which is everywhere, and everywhere now. I usually would say everywhere but the U.S., but it's Colorado farmers are getting ag permits from their state Department of Agriculture to plant unlimited acreage of commercial cultivation, which is further than the Farm Bill went this year. So what the big time people in the billion-dollar industry say is you got to look at the list of the approved cultivars and you've got to make sure that you're officially someone growing that. Otherwise, you're not playing in the big leagues. That's not what professional farming is. Like, it's basically grow up. Like, you don't just say I'm a dentist. You have to go into good dental school and do it the way that other dentists do. Otherwise, you're not in the club. And they argue that that's what should be done with hemp. Nothing wrong with new cultivars being developed and added to that sort of canon, but especially to start, you need to be established if you're gonna have your seed bought. So, to answer the question about varieties, the Finola that we were talking about earlier from Finland, it's 1.5 foot tall and it's just a seed machine. And then look at this one. This is Belgium. You know, it's a 7 or 8 foot tall plant. And this was just after there was actually a seed harvest, and then they had a problem with their fiber this year, so they did to the fiber side. But ideally, what I'd like to see is cultivars chosen that work obviously for the local climate, but are able to be grown for seed and fiber applications. And then a third energy application we were talking about earlier. So what you can do is look for places in the world that have similar climate. And when it turns out, David West, the same guy who found the rotten seeds, he did a research study in Hawaii. He was very surprised to learn it wasn't so much temperature, rainfall, what else was it? Well, it wasn't so much about soil content or any of it, or latitude even. The most important quality for a cultivar that worked well in Hawaii was photoperiod, just places that really had similar days. So you never know. An Uzbek cultivar might work best for a part of Eastern California or something like that, Kern County. So that research needs to go on. And any DEA agents here tonight? Any DEA agent? If you are here, guys, thanks for your work. The Canadians put their drug squads to work certifying that their plants are low on THC. In the 15 years of the Canadian industry, any guesses of how many times there have been confusions or problems with hemp plants and THC?
Zero.
Yeah, 0, exactly. So, but still, DEA guys, we could put some of you to work doing that kind of research. But really, DEA guys, what I'm saying right now is, please honor federal law, even if you don't like it, because the Farm Bill said we can cultivate it in states that have university research programs, which means we have to import seed. So stop seizing the seed, because that's what the law says. Okay? So this is not 1932 grapes of wrath. This is 2012, Eastern Colorado. Yes.
I just want to say, the state of Illinois today, the House passed a hemp bill.
Awesome.
It's got to pass the Senate yet, but it looks like it's going to happen.
In the last few months,
For research, this is research for the universities.
which is what the federal provision that the great Jared Polis, congressman from Colorado, inserted in this year's Farm Bill. We're now all supporting S359, which would remove cannabis with low THC from the Controlled Substances Act entirely and allow farmers to cultivate it like any other crop, which is what Colorado allows. But we'll get there. Like, I'd like to see this happen. Ron Wyden and the Senate is the one who's pushing that one. But we do need to research the cultivars, you know? We do need to figure out what cultivars are going to work. So this is a wheat field in eastern Colorado. These are non-liberals that I interviewed. Jelaine said when I first met her, she did not know the difference between hemp and psychoactive cannabis. And this is extremely eastern Colorado. This is not Boulder. There is no meditation going on in this county. Well, I'll get to that one. So This is their winter wheat crop. This is a crop. This is not the Sahara Desert or the beach. This is their field. It's desperate, and the other reservoir is drying out. As soon as she heard about it, as soon as she started reading about it in the journal, she wanted to start doing hemp. So, what Ryan Laughlin found nearby, he's about 2 counties south, was that it requires half the water that his wheat crop had required, which means that people that are suffering from Chad to Colorado can dryland crop hemp, have a cash harvest while restoring the soil that each year will get progressively healthier, allow them more of a rotation, start growing other food crops, etc., etc. It is a 9th inning climate mitigation project, and the leftover cellulose after the seed and fiber applications go into our gasification units and wean us from our utilities. Sorry guys, thanks for your service. So this is my anytime you get off of Petroleum, it's a good thing slide. I am right of center in the Bay Area. I am patriotic. I mean, I'm not saying anybody here is not, or that, but I find that I am a little more sympathetic. Let's just talk about Petroleum, okay? I'm a bit of a realist about Petroleum. I'm willing to pardon Cheney and Rumsfeld and those guys, and this is you risk losing the audience with this, and not just pardon them, but put a statue of a gusher on the mall near the Lincoln Memorial as ode to Petroleum. What Petroleum has allowed in this country. First of all, we could not have won World War II without Texas crude oil. Secondly, all my, progressive get beyond petroleum writing about my solar-powered ranch is on my petroplastic shipped via Petroleum laptop. I couldn't do anything that I'm doing without it. It's just that was last century, Of course, the powerful and richest people are going to try and control the status quo. That's how it works. And with our dollars and our wallets, we say thank you. You had a great century, but no thanks. We'll take it from here with hemp and solar, et cetera, et cetera. And so this is sort of my, you've heard about the BP stuff and the Exxon Valdez, but do you know that people are getting killed every day in the Niger Delta over ethnic fighting over pipeline stuff and oil stuff? If you throw a dart at a board that just contains places where petroleum is harvested, something terrible is happening to the planet or to the people that live in that area. It's almost never okay. So it's time to move on. Thank you, Petroleum. We're on to the next thing. And in truth, I was not really the peace sign flag in college guy coming to hemp. I came to hemp largely through watching it win in the marketplace in a number of areas while I was, especially after I became a father. So, so the New Mexico, anybody here have small kids and done the line drying thing, that it's kind of like poop, wash, line dry, poop, wash, line dry, break for lunch. And cotton diapers fell apart, even organic cotton diapers. And a friend told us about hemp diapers and they totally held up. Dr. Bronner's soap, safe, non-toxic, no, BPH, BPA, sodium lauryl sulfate, just olive oil, hemp oil, a few other things. We'll talk more about them. I have real life climate change issues myself, everybody's had crazy weather events recently. There's no place I go where people don't have an example, but on mine it was no monsoon season. We have a New Mexican here in 2006, no monsoon at all. We're supposed to get our 90% of our rain for the year, July or August. Nothing. Then end of August, beginning of September, it didn't stop raining for 2 or 3 months. NOAA had 40 days and 40 nights of not being able to, find shore. This was like my neighbor trying to cross on day 43 on the creek that I need to cross to get from my ranch to civilization. So I want to be generating energy and pressing seed oil. The seed cake that remains after you press off the oil. Oil presses are not complicated things. They're just two heavy pieces of metal. When I tell people that are potential processors or investors in processors, when I visited again the biggest seed oil mogul in Canada, expanding to a bigger facility that was only about maybe half the space of this bookstore, filled with seed oil presses. You just don't need that much space. So something that's as big as this bookstore could have a ton of fiber processing applications going on, plus the seed processing, plus a little gasification unit on the energy side. And that's, I say that about 100 times every time I'm speaking to anybody in Colorado, because that's the model that I'd really like to see. As for the animal feed, I visited a study, university study that showed that hemp-fed chickens were passing on a better omega acid profile and higher minerals to us in their eggs than corn-fed. And if you go, there's a video on my website, dougfine.com, that you can just see the difference in color in yolk, and just the health of the yolk. So that's important to me on my ranch. Again, because my girlfriend's into it, I pay a lot of attention to textiles. So these are kind of like cool hemp textile things. 9,000-year-old Anatolia in Turkish tomb Stanford-led study found some really in good shape hemp clothes recently. First Levi's. I was really surprised. We were talking about hand earlier, silky softness on this hemp material that justices would wear in the Netherlands until relatively recently. This was the Hemp Museum in Amsterdam. I found that out. Japanese emperor attends a coronation and dressed in hemp. And a couple of weeks ago, I got to testify for overall ending the international war on cannabis at the high session of the UN Conference on Narcotic Drugs. This is all, by the way, for those who are really interested in the drug peace era, this is all leading up to the 2016 UNGAS, the UN General Assembly Special Session on drug policy called by the presidents of Venezuela, Mexico, and Colombia, with the aim of revising the 3 conventions or treaties on narcotic drugs. What we, I hope, will let our people know that we want those things to say is let individual nations decide what to do, especially vis-a-vis cannabis. And that doesn't really change anything. If Iran wants to keep the death penalty, as they argued the same day that I was giving a little talk, they said they found it a very effective deterrent for possession. Yeah, it's been quite a lesson. Anyway, I think good things are going to happen in UNGAS in 2016. I think the world gets it now. Yeah, and thanks to you, Californians have been showing what de facto legalization is like. Society continues. In any event, I'm pretty sure that I was the only person recently to testify in the United Nations, especially on drug policy, dressed head to toe in hemp. But it was a fun experience.
That's awesome.
So I'd like to talk a little bit about the hemp brand. Again, I'm not receiving any money yet from these companies, but there was a study, I think it was out of Purdue, that said that hemp's reputation, its brand of righteousness, and beyond don't be evil but be actively good, is actually a vital piece of the toolkit for launching the industry successfully. People really care about it, and that's why Frankenhemp is off the table from year 1 in Canada. Big hemp sandwich, I'm fine with that. It just needs to be non-GMO. So David Bronner, it's a $54 million company. He's the grandson of the founder. He's Harvard educated. He makes 5 times more than his lowest paid employee. They get their olive oil from orchards worked jointly by Israelis and Palestinians. He fought successfully in court, sued the DEA to be allowed to even import this hemp seed that you guys all have today. Completely inert, you can feed it to your babies, And then last year, he chained himself in a cage with a hemp plant in front of the White House. That's kind of those small seed-dense finola varieties I was talking about. With the sign, dear Mr. President, I'd let you as farmers grow hemp. And got arrested, and then it happened. I mean, it's this miraculous, astonishing no-brainer that it happened for real, and hemp is back. It's a truly fantastic thing. So these are the type of companies that I'm going to support. And so if you're an investor, I hope you will look towards community-based regional hemp cooperatives. So again, every time that I can not sound like the roommate with the lava lamp, any sort of caution or curbing of enthusiasm that I can impart, I will, because hemp has so much going for it. It's gonna make it. It's gonna be a major factor in our economy, in our food system, and in our energy system, and therefore in humanity's climate change mitigation project. You can tell anybody that I said that. I'll defend it. But fiber. If you look at sketchings, medieval sketchings from Romania or France, this is what it looks like. Harvesting, minus maybe the tractors, but so once you harvest hemp, there's a fungal battle that goes on in the outer bark that allows it to soften enough for you to get at the viable fibers within. It's called retting. It takes 2 or so weeks. You have to rotate it just enough of the moisture, not too much, not too little. And it's a real pain, and it's stressful. And you lose a lot, you lose a percentage of the crop, et cetera, et cetera. So there is a solution. There's a decorticator that can scrape the bark off and tossing right in the gasification machine. The gasification unit. And they're expensive. This is a decorticator. This is fiber coming out of the decorticator. So they're expensive. They're an option, but just lest anybody think that they can just go and find 300 acres and make a ton of money. They probably can, because seed oil prices are so high, but on the fiber side, there's definitely a learning curve. A hemp flag flew over the Capitol, the U.S. Capitol. This is when it went over the Colorado Capitol. On July 4th of last year, it went over flew over the U.S. Capitol at the request of Jared Bullis, congressman from Colorado. So in the end, I think that industrial cannabis is going to be bigger than psychoactive cannabis, and my shorthand on that is that Coors is big, but ExxonMobil is bigger. If we really are putting, China wants 3 million acres of hemp cultivated. So I'd say, why don't we aim for double that? If we're cultivating 6-7 million acres of hemp, that is a serious dent into our fossil fuel consumption if we start implementing this decentralized grid idea. A former president of his college Republicans in Kentucky named Roger Ford has a utility down there, and he is buying up land with the express intent, because it's cheap land that's been destroyed by tobacco monoculture and coal mining, that hemp will grow on and provide cheap energy for gasification facilities in the South. And I said, why do you want to do that? And he took on this prideful tone and said, Thomas Jefferson and George Washington cultivated hemp in the South, and Kentucky's was the world leading industry. He sent me this article about Kentucky's first millionaire in 1818 was Lexington hemp baron. Anytime you talk to people that really know about hemp, it's amazing. Like on this Reading thing, one of the experts, which one told me the story? I think it was David West told me the story about there was a Missouri industrialist who he was a hemp mogul, but he got outsmarted on the political front, and someone he believed produced inferior fiber had a better connection with the Navy procuring department, and he got cut out of the loop. And nearly bankrupt, he decided he was going to do this advanced in retting, having to do with water retting, which would make him be able to harvest quicker and more and win the contract back. It was a real, it was the kind of story that if it happened today, it would be written up as a business book. But the actual water retting didn't work. He wound up going bankrupt because the actual hemp was fine, but he was running up a lot of costs because so many of his workers were dying of pneumonia for how long they had to be submerged underwater. A lot of people were getting really, really sick, and then they were just having to sleep outside. So it didn't work out for him. Thank you to Adam Eidinger, a great cannabis and hemp activist in Washington, D.C., for digging up this photo. This is a USDA researcher doing what Canada's doing now, and what all of our universities should be doing now, studying hemp cultivars. Look how tall those are. Those are for fiber. And this is why psychoactive cannabis can never be confused for industrial cannabis. They don't even look the same at all. But this was a USDA researcher developing cultivars for American farmers on land that's today the Pentagon. Do you have a question?
Yes, how competitive is hemp as a fiber with cotton, in terms of acreage, usage, and whatnot?
Hemp as a textile application is, for North American farmers, we have the furthest to go on that. It doesn't exist today, and it's a high-end application. So my information, I interviewed a few Chinese hemp people on this, but there's a woman named Barbara Philippone who lives in Colorado who runs the biggest importer of hemp textiles. And she's been doing it for a long time. Textiles is the name of the company. And she lived and worked in China for like 19 years. And she is more bearish on American textile industry rebirth than I am, because she believes the Chinese are so far ahead and they don't have labor costs. But hemp fiber as construction is totally cost competitive. Hemp fiber and high-tech applications replacing petroplastics, highly competitive on performance and cost. Textiles is the one that's the biggest long shot, really.
And what about the invasive insects and whatnot? Isn't hemp more resistant to that sort of thing?
It is. It's resistant. It's shown resistance to termites in Hawaii and mold in Manitoba. And I'm speaking to the guys in the construction ads, not to like publicists or hempsters, people in the field. Yeah. So this is not an Occupy issue. It's Mitch McConnell right there. Not a liberal. Not a liberal. And you know, in rural areas, I always have my ranch sign there to let people know that I'm also a rancher. Side note on this sign, I've never yet had anybody honor it and call me up and say, oh, I thought maybe you wanted to call first based on your sign. What tends to happen is, living in 41 acres in the middle of nowhere, 40 minutes from the nearest town, I assume that after laundry day, I can sort of step out on the porch and walk, you know, the distance over to those shirts to get my boxers off the line in the morning. And invariably, that's when Mary, the UPS driver, is working her way down the driveway. No trespassing. I see why people write it. It gets the point across. But you know, I went to a 4th of July barbecue last year, the one at which you saw earlier Michael Bowman planting hemp as a demonstration for some serious non-liberals. And you know, these are the bumper stickers in the parking lot. It's okay to be right. These were people that like, you don't say Obamacare in mixed company around them. These were not liberal people. And like I said, 100% down with hemp. What we've got to do now is, support S359. So call your senators, let them know we want Ron Wyden's Hemp Cultivation Act of 2014, I think is what it's called. And just to show how we've really crossed the barrier, this is a birther. My accountant, you know, Silver City, New Mexico is. You know, it's the heartland, and I went in there to drop off my taxes a couple weeks ago, and she showed me that she uses hemp moisturizer now, so I thought, we've really got this battle won. And Taylor Swift, my goat, cannot wait to eat it. When I got an advanced copy of the book and brought it to take like a Twitter picture with her and it, because animal feed is a big deal. I haven't even told you the whole thing. I told you about chickens, but there's another study in Washington State that pigs fed hemp are fattening up 20 pounds more. It's very significant. And I know people in Canada now who live in that economy of the hemp harvest and use the leftover seed cake that just kind of goes to compost outside the factory as the only thing they feed their pigs, protein-wise, along with some compost and stuff like that. It's really quite amazing. But anyway, Taylor Swift took a bite out of my copy of Hemp Bound, so she's ready for it. DougFine.com is a place where you can contact me, and I mention this because, you know, part of my role here on this one is putting people together. So if you've got a cool hemp application and you want to know where to go with it, and you can follow me on Twitter. That's something where I do a lot of updates on what I'm seeing and what interests me. And in the end, you know I don't really necessarily have to make that case here in San Francisco as I might in some other places, but truly, in the end for me, the reason why I'm able to be passionate about this and go out every night and talk about hemp is because I honestly believe it's going to result in a stronger America, a healthy future for my children, and a climate mitigation opportunity for humanity worldwide. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for watching World Reefers. I hope you enjoyed and stay high.